I think we ought to take a call from Stephen in Washington. Stephen, you are on the show Talk Heathen with Christy Powell and Johnny P. And it says here that you want to ask the hosts perspectives on Christian nationalism in the US of A. Is that right?
That is correct, sir.
Christy, you got any thoughts on Christian nationalism? Because I do.
Yeah, too many. I definitely, Stephen, if you have any particular questions, please let me know. But I guess I'll just say, generally speaking, that this is a week where we're in particular feeling it. Like here in Texas on the 1st, we had 666 new laws go into effect, and so many of those laws are really bent by a Christian nationalist faction, and so many of them are incredibly devastating. Honestly, I'm at a moment myself where I'm just still trying to wrap my head around it and get comfortable even talking about some of these issues. So I guess I'll say, in short, my perspective on Christian nationalism is that it has no place in a pluralistic society, in a just society. And I am a little bit like hurt and overwhelmed, as I know so many people are.
Yep.
Sure.
Thoughts on that?
If you don't mind me hopping in here, my main thing is I'm part of I called the Atheist Experience last week or the week before that, and my main issue is I've gone looking into the black hole of information on Christian nationalism and dominionism, and the number of different churches, specifically in my area, that promote these ideas and try to instill them in my local government is really starting to give me a lot of anxiety and fear and a lot of anger that I just don't know what to do with. And I'm just trying to get kind of a logic check here.
Yeah.
Am I right to be that concerned? And what do I do with all this? Like, I know enough now that I feel like I have to do something, but I don't know where to put it.
Yeah, we're right past the hypothetical of what it could be. We're already seeing that it is. But Johnny, please.
No, it's Christy. I do want to. Yeah, exactly. You were right to be concerned, Stephen. I read a couple of books on this recently and you may have already read them. One of them is Taking America Back for God. Very interesting and depressing book. It's by Andrew Whitehead and Samuel L. Perry, talking about Christian nationalism in the United States. Very interesting analysis of it. Looking at a lot of statistical analysis of who these folks are, what are they talking about. One of the things that I thought was interesting in there was it's not exactly Christian doctrine made law. It's more of an ideology into itself. And some of the statistics, at least as I read it, and if I'm reading it wrong, I'm sure the chat will correct me, but Christians who tend to go to church more frequently, who tend to have more biblical literacy, tend to have less supportive views of Christian nationalism, which is...
That resonates to me.
Yeah, which is, I think wonderful. I think we have a lot of allies inside and outside of Christianity, and it sounds like you would be an ally to the non-believing community or the non-Christian nationalist community with atheists, other folks who don't want to see these laws, who don't want to see folks break down that barrier of the separation of church and state, enforce almost Christian Sharia. Was it the Texas? They call it the Texas Taliban. What was the phrase?
Yeah, that line's getting a lot of play right now. I mean, Stephen, I don't share your beliefs, but do you feel at all as if your belief system, your culture, is being hijacked by, I don't know, corrupt politicians or businessmen or anything else? Does that experience describe or resonate with what you're going through?
A great question.
Yeah, absolutely. The big thing that I found very frustrating in this is that they use the Bible and specifically Jesus as like the center of their, their legal system that they're trying to impose on everyone. When a lot of what Jesus taught has nothing to do with any of the laws that they're trying to implement. One of the guys that I've specifically been really frustrated with is this pastor called Doug Wilson. He runs a Calvinist church kind of in my local area, and this guy's a real piece of work. Like, obviously, Calvinists and Episcopalians would have some disagreements regardless of every person's individual perspective. But him specifically, some of the things that he says and does promoting this kingdom of God, as he puts it, just disturb me to my core. Like promoting
just how normalized that language
as a.
Sorry, we got a little bit of crosstalk going on there. No, I get it. Yeah, that it chills you to your core, and no one's at fault here. Just there's a delay. It just happens. But yeah, it is frightening because it doesn't ring. And I grew up Catholic, but it doesn't mean that that's the only Christian experience that's out there. And I know that other Catholics had much different experiences than I did growing up, based upon where they were in the world and the time that they were growing up. But it doesn't sound like any Christianity that I've ever encountered in my own personal experiences in life. Certainly, the message of Jesus, I never grew up with the impression that Jesus was this violent dude. I mean, I know he trashed some tables in the temple on one occasion, but there's not a lot of language in there about, bearing swords or trebuchets or whatever, catapults, and storming the Senate, taking over, forcing everyone to be Christian. It did always seem that there was at least lip service to a message of love, although you look closely and there are some issues with I did not come to bring peace but a sword. But it still doesn't sound like let's force everyone to believe this. Let's take over and I don't know. I would encourage you to read that book. I know also The Founding Myth covers a bit of it by Andrew Seidel. I tutored that a few times lately, a few different shows, but there's a lot of analysis taking place. What's frightening to me, I also read a book recently called Anatomy of Fascism, and I can't remember who wrote that, but the Anatomy of Fascism just talks about some of the tools that fascistic and fascist light folks will use, and typically they will take on a myth of the past that either existed in some form or didn't exist at all, and they will use that, they will spin that, they'll weave that into an entire worldview to try to inspire and mobilize folks to take action. We saw this in Germany, we saw this in Italy, we see this all around the world, where folks will take an ideology like that, take a myth, take a history, real or mythologized, to try to mobilize people to taking action. And I think the only way to stop that from happening is to confront it rhetorically and sometimes, physically, not necessarily attacking people, but to be there in those places where those people are acting, record, share that information, speak out, and be involved in decision making, whether that's on the national level, the local level, or in your family environment, friends and family environment. Have those conversations, because those ideas they're starting to not just breed in the dark, but they do, but they're spreading and they're becoming acceptable. And we can't let that happen, because it won't be good for the atheists. And it certainly won't be good for folks like you who want to promote. I'm assuming you want to promote peace and love in the world. Do you?
Yeah, that's So I don't know how familiar you are with the Episcopal Church, but it's specifically my local church is
Yeah.
a very liberal, very peaceful group of people.
Mhm.
We don't usually get involved in political issues like this, but right now there are multiple school board positions and city council positions and other local government positions that have been taken over by parishioners in these groups that are trying to push through a lot of this Christian nationalist, like very clearly not secular based laws. And
Right.
it's funny that you mentioned all these books. I read Mr. Seidel's book, and I thought it was very enlightening. The book that really sent me down this whole rabbit hole in the first place was a book called The Power Worshippers.
Ooh.
I would highly recommend that one. Reading through it, one of my atheist friends recommended it to me, and reading through it, as I continued, it was like, wow, this really sounds a lot like, this Doug Wilson guy. And sure enough, I go looking into it, and that's exactly what's going on. So
That was written by.
I think that we are definitely on the same page as far as, like, this is a thing. This is something to be worried about. I'm justified in having the feelings that I do.
Yep.
So then, as far as where to put all this stress and all this emotion, you would recommend just like trying to get as much information as possible, reaching out to, legal agencies and people that can kind of approach this more from a enforcing secular government side instead of trying to convince these people that they're doing something wrong. Because I haven't had any luck on that front.
I didn't say that. Yeah, if that's what you're thinking, I'm saying that's not what I'm saying. No, I think you haven't had any luck in that. That was going to be a question of mine. What has been the response from these Christian nationalist folks in your community? What do they say when you push back, and how do you push back? What's your approach? I want to know.
So usually, in this community, there are, I think, the number that I calculated out is that there are, for every one church, you could have a group of 20 people, and that would be the entire population of the town. You could have 20 people in each church, and that's how many churches we have. It is just, religion is just very pervasive throughout our town.
Sure.
And there are consortiums that we get together, and there are representatives from each of the churches that get together and, have a cup of coffee, or we'll go to different local events and we'll have booths representing each one of our churches. And there's a lot of crosstalk at these events. And what I try to do is I try to build up as much of a coalition of these people that I can to be like, look, any laws that we try to push forward that represent one of our churches more than the other one gives the power to subjugate all of us. None of us can have a distinct control over our local government because that's never going to be a stable solution. All of these laws that they're implementing give the governmental power to turn that power against themselves. And that's kind of the way that I've been approaching it. But these people are so hell-bent and convinced that the end times are going to be coming within the millennia. And
let's go ahead and just scorch the earth and destroy
government.
all of our relationships and things because, it's time to just give up. Get in now. I appreciate everything you're saying, Stephen.
It's not a scorched earth policy. It's not a scorched earth policy. They believe that bringing about the kingdom of God by taking over the government will bring about the end of the earth. That's their motivation. They're trying to get into these government offices so that they can bring about the end of days. And it's so paranoid and so fearful that these people are motivated by that emotion, and there's no talking about it.
Yeah, it's a kind of a death cult, isn't it? Because they're trying to end the world. Um,
Absolutely.
that's frightening. Yeah, it is. And I don't know what the answer is. I think you're doing the right thing. You're trying to build a consensus. I would hope that as that cooler heads will prevail over time. We're existing in this world of conspiracy theories, of alternative facts, of these little cabal groups of folks who are trying to bring about a different way of living, and who the QAnon thing, folks who the fact that they are extreme is it's rewarding itself. I've talked about this before. Red pill, blue pill, the conspiracy theories that are killing us. Another book that I enjoyed recently, talking about this feedback loop. The more extreme you are, the more radical your views are, the more you exist in that world. The folks that are in there with you, they reward you with positive feelings. It's like the social media effect, where you get the likes, you get the endorphins, you get all that stuff. And I think the only way to do that is to be calm and patient when talking to those folks. But it is a frightening thing to do. But the only thing that will definitely make things worse is to do nothing. And I think what you're trying to do is the smart thing. You're trying to build a consensus. You're trying to listen. You're trying to be patient. Those people might not listen to you, but the person you're speaking to might be too hardened at this point. But speaking to others around them, they're not alone. I do not see how this way of thinking can function, can spread, and can actually take over if people are behaving rationally and are having calm, rational thoughts, and don't give them an inch. You see on these shows sometimes we have people with some rather outlandish positions. You don't have to get angry to say no. I don't accept that. I'm sorry. No, you're going to have to prove to me that this is a legitimate future for us. I don't want it.
Sure.
And prove to me,
Sure.
but be there and exemplify the behavior you want to see in others, and build a consensus, and try not to push those folks out. Always try to maintain that dialogue. I got a friend right now whose mother has gone down this type of hole, and it becomes very draining. What you seem to want to do is just, I don't want to talk to them right now. I don't want to have this conversation. And maybe you can't have that conversation every time you talk to them. And maybe the comfortable thing is to go away and just find people who aren't batty when it comes to these things. But I think what you're doing is important, and to solidify your community, to make sure that there's a dialogue of a healthier form of engagement with the society we live in. I don't know if you have any further thoughts and things develop. You gave me a book to read. I gave you a couple of books to read. Maybe you've read them already. I do appreciate the work that you're doing. Of course, we don't have to agree on the metaphysics of everything to understand that we do share this world, and we don't want to see it burning around us. So, last thoughts, Christy? You got any parting?
No, just to say thank you for working to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
You mentioned not wanting to let one particular church dominate the other churches, and let me maybe substitute that for letting right dominate over wrong. And we can disagree about some of the nuances of right and wrong, but if you are putting the idea of fairness and justice and equality ahead of everything else, we're all going to be pulling in the same direction.
Yeah. All right. With that, Stephen, you take care. All right. And, call back. Let us know if you've had any successes, and if there's anything that does work to bring some of those folks back over into the rational realm. Please come and share it, because everyone's experiencing this right now, and they're going to want to know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.